on to the next big story, the case of pile of cash, which was found at the house of former Delhi High Court Judge Yashwant Verma. That happened back in March. Now, a 3-member panel of senior judges has recommended the removal of Justice Verma. The panel has said that there is enough evidence of cash at the judge's house. It has further added that there is strong inferential evidence of cash removal. Remember, this was a 3-judge committee which has also concluded now that the cash was removed early morning on March 15th. NDTV has accessed the panel's report, and let me take you through some of the incriminating findings in the 64-page report. The committee holds that the money cash was found in the storeroom located within the premises of 30 Tughlaq Crescent, New Delhi, occupied by Justice Verma, the source of which could not be accounted for by Justice Verma. Moving on to another damning part of this report. Access to the storeroom was with Justice Verma and his family members, and well monitored without any outsiders getting access to it without permission. The probe committee, in fact, recorded testimonies of 55 witnesses, and one of the witnesses has actually said, and this is witness number 8, Bhavar Singh, who is the driver of the Delhi Fire Services. He says, as I entered, I noticed the right-hand side, and in front there was a large pile of cash, only of rupees 500 lying on the floor. I was shocked and surprised at such large amounts of cash thrown on the floor. I saw this for the first time in my life. So finally, what really is the conclusion? Looking at this now, the committee is firmly of the view that there is sufficient substance in the allegations raised by the Chief Justice of India, then CJI Sanjeev Kumar, and the misconduct found proved is serious enough to call for initiation of proceedings for removal of Justice Yashwant Verma. Remember, the indication that has come in from the government is that there will be impeachment proceedings which will be initiated against Justice Verma during the upcoming monsoon session, which begins next month. So what now in this case? Former Solicitor General of India, Harish Salve, is joining us live. Mr. Salve, I really appreciate your time, sir. The 3-member judge panel, these were all senior judges, sir. They have submitted their report and they nailed Justice Verma. Would you then say that this is an open and shut case? And what happens to the impeachment proceedings? What, according to you, is the way forward, sir?
Of course, there is an immediate problem. The immediate problem is how is Justice Yashwant Verma going to be dealt with in a manner that restores some semblance of credibility which has been damaged by this unfortunate incident. But there is a larger problem also. It's the elephant in the room which nobody is willing to talk about. And that is where have our systems gone wrong? There are 2 things which need to be considered. Why has this problem come to pass? Just think of this, Maria. If this kind of incident had happened with somebody who was a civil servant or somebody who was in political life, by now the whole institution, including the Supreme Court, would have been thinking in terms of special investigation teams and CBI and accountability and monitored investigation. And the court should not create an impression thereby that where it is one of their own, a different set of rules apply. If this had been the house of a minister where this incident had taken place, would it have been enough to say that the minister must now resign and go away? Or by now the media would have been screaming, why is the minister not in jail? Correct? So if a public servant has been found with such large amounts of unaccounted cash, what happens to the criminal justice system of the country? That's one question which looms large. Now, you have the Ramaswamy judgment, where Supreme Court said you cannot lodge a police complaint without the permission of the Chief Justice of India. That was a makeshift arrangement till a proper institutional mechanism was set up. Unfortunately, the institutional mechanism which was set up has been trashed by the Supreme Court itself, and they struck down the NJSA. And you have now no institutional mechanism by which accountability is ensured. The second is impeachment. Impeachment continues to be in its old form in the process of parliamentary domain. And there again, the judge will be entitled to, a committee will have to be formed, the judge will be entitled to a hearing, post-impeachment. If you remember in the Ramaswamy case, Mr. Sibal went and appeared to defend Ramaswamy in Parliament. And he argued for 2 hours, 3 hours in Parliament. I don't know if the judge insists on his right for Parliament to hear him, that will have to be done. So, and why? Just because he's a judge. So what I'm saying is impeachment was not meant to deal with problems like this. Today, there is a large amount of cash. Does the Prevention of Corruption Act not apply? It does. What happens if there is unaccounted cash? The presumption of the law is it's deemed to be unaccounted money under the Prevention of Corruption Act, unless you can explain the source. Now, why is the law of the country not taking its course? Why are we even discussing this on TV? Why is there a question of what will happen now? Would there be a doubt if it was any other citizen? And this is the real problem of this case. We have tied ourselves in knots. The judges, I'm sorry to say, have tied themselves in knots. Yes, they've done it out of good intention to protect the independence of judges. But what about protecting the integrity of the system? It is now established that this whole collegium system, it doesn't act with alacrity. How old is the incident now? The incident happened, in November or December or sometime like that? We are now in May.
Mr. Salve, as you pointed out rightly, it has been 3 months. Then what should be done? Should there be a criminal proceeding based on this report, and because this is a panel which was set up by the Supreme Court itself, or can there be only the impeachment proceedings which is scheduled for the next month when the monsoon session of Parliament begins?
Let me be very clear. First of all, after 3 judges, committee has found Justice Verma to be prima facie guilty. I'm deliberately using the words prima facie, of possessing unaccounted cash. What is the delay in now allowing the CBI to register a case and investigate it like any other act of corruption? And that has to be the basis for the impeachment. And it is well settled that civil and criminal proceedings can run side by side. So if the law of the land applies to you, we always use that famous epithet, howsoever high you may be, the law is above you. Why is that not in play? And they should do it. And what are we waiting for? Unfortunately, impeachment is the only process we have, so we have to work it. But I think there has to be a debate in the country. Do we need to revive the collegium?
Yes.
Do we need to revisit the Supreme Court judgment by which Supreme Court said any interference with the collegium system takes away from the independence of judges? And where are we left today? We are left with a dysfunctional system.
Yes, that's right, sir. You have raised a number of questions, particularly with regards to the appointment of these judges. Do you think the cleaning up of the judiciary has to happen from within, or the executive, legislature, as they have clearly intervened, as legislature will be conducting the impeachment proceedings? Then what happens to the separation of powers?
See, the power to amend the constitution is only with Parliament. Okay, so if Parliament has to make a law, it's only Parliament which can amend the constitution to put an institutional mechanism in place. for judicial accountability. So there is no question of distance between the institutions. Parliament will be doing its job. And I remember a very powerful statement made in a very gentle voice by the then Attorney General Shri Lal Narayan Sinha, who was one of the most respected lawyers, a lawyer who I've really looked up to. When I was appearing with Mr. Palkhiwala in the Minerva Mills case, which challenged 42nd Amendment. And you know what Mr. Lal Narayan Sinha said? He said, it is true that without the Supreme Court, the freedoms in the Constitution cannot survive. But he said, don't ever forget, without Parliament, democracy and the Supreme Court will not survive. So each institution has its place, and the primacy of Parliament has to be recognized. Except in narrow cases where the Supreme Court finds an act of Parliament to be unconstitutional, each institution must have its place. And where it comes to making laws, Parliament and Parliament alone makes laws. So there is no question of being a judge in its own cause. Doesn't the Supreme Court decide cases involving people in public life? Doesn't the Supreme Court decide cases involving judges? So that's not an argument. Parliament has to address A, the problem of Justice Verma, B, the problem of a system which has become so dysfunctional that 4 months or 5 months after the incident, we are discussing what should happen next. Nobody knows. No, there's no clarity on what is to happen next. So, you know, on that question, on what you've asked me just now, on that doesn't, as they say, the tail hangs on that question, right? We are in a situation where we don't know what to do with this. Why? Would you be asking me this question if cash had been found in a minister's house, if cash had been found in a secretary to the government's house? No. Why are you asking me this question when it comes to a judge? That's the point which we need to address.
So let me ask that question to our next guest. Harish Salve, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Mukul Rohatgi, former Attorney General of India, is joining us now. Mr. Rohatgi, the 3 judges panel report accessed by NDTV has 2 very damning paragraphs. And I'm going to quote a part of this, and it says very clearly, access to the storeroom was with the justice and his family members and was well monitored without any outsiders getting access without permission. And then it goes on to say that highly suspicious items and not small denomination could not have been placed without the active consent of Justice Verma or his family. This is a 64-page report, sir. Where do we go from here onwards? Where is judiciary headed?
Now, Maria, I have read the report and I have great regard for the 3 judges, their intelligence and integrity. That's not in question. But I must regret that after going through the report, I am convinced that the conclusions of the report cannot stand for more than 5 minutes in a court of law or in a properly constituted inquiry under the impeachment motion mode. And why do I say that? Now, Maria, let me pose a few questions. Number 1, how much was the currency? Number 2, how much was burnt and how much was unburnt? Number 3, whether the notes were genuine or fake. Number 4, why did not the police / fire brigade seize the currency? Number 5, why was not an FIR or at least a preliminary inquiry registered? Why was not any investigation done? Why and how did the police not report it immediately, in as much as why was action not taken? why after it was brought to the notice of the Chief Justice the next morning, how come the judge was sitting in court for 5 days? Why did not the Chief Justice react? And finally, I have actually seen the house where the judge was residing. My brother-in-law, former judge of Delhi High Court, Vipin Sanghi, was living in that house. So I am pretty familiar with that house. They are 1 acre houses. The storeroom was a makeshift kind of a room. It is not a part of the living quarters of the judge. The rear entry to all those Lodi estate houses or Tughlaq Road houses was never manned. Who has kept the money? Nobody knows. I mean, there are so many questions which arise which are unanswered that you just damn a judge and his reputation built over maybe 30 years. A judge with impeccable integrity till date, belonging to a line of succession of judges. But I find it very hard to believe. And Maria, let me tell you my own experience. When I was Attorney General, I was living in 10 Motilal, the Nehru Marg, next to the Taj Hotel.
Okay, sir.
It had 8-7 quarters at the back, spread over at least half an acre. Maybe in my 3 years there, I went at the back once or twice. I never knew how many people were living, what were their families, who were their visitors, what is the kind of money or bags or other equipment they kept. Nobody knows. So I mean to say that if somebody kept money or somebody murdered somebody at the back, would I be an accessory to that murder because it was in my house? I mean, it is absolutely astounding that such a report has been given merely on the basis of some presumption. This report is not based even on preponderance of evidence or of a standard which is beyond reasonable doubt. That is the standard of our criminal jurisprudence. According to me, this report falls completely short of this standard. But the reputation of the judge is damned. And let me be practical. Whether the judge goes through the motion of impeachment or not, his reputation is finished. And even if he is exonerated, there is no way that he can be a judge once again. These are my thoughts which I wanted to share with you and the public.
Mr. Rodgi, you have raised a number of questions and answers to that we do not have at the moment. And you also say, sir, that this report won't stand in the court because there are a number of presumptions. The 3 senior judges have also recorded eyewitness testimonies in this report, and they're quoting in these 64 pages. If you feel that there are several missing pieces in this puzzle, then shouldn't that be investigated? And what do you have to say that if you feel that Justice Verma's reputation has been completely damned, then what should Justice Verma and his family do now as the impeachment proceedings is likely to happen next month?
Look, there can be an investigation, but this investigation done by this judges committee, which is an in-house committee, it has no legal standing. It is only a committee formed by Parliament post admission of a motion for impeachment. It is only that committee which is recognized as a committee in law. So, if the judge is to go through the impeachment motion, it is that committee which will examine all witnesses and may come to a finding. As far as this report is concerned, it is only based on presumptions. It is not based on any standard of proof or of beyond reasonable doubt. So it's up to the judge now. He can face the inquiry. The inquiry under the impeachment motion will be of 3 judges, including a judge sitting or retired of the Supreme Court of India. That will be a proper quasi-judicial inquiry. It will examine all this material, all this evidence, with a right of cross-examination to the delinquent. So the judge can have his own lawyer who can conduct cross-examination if he wants to be exonerated and clear his name. Now that is all that is left, for the honorable judge to do. I mean, then the law will take its own course. Let's see what happens.
Okay, Mr.
Depending
Rodgi,
on what course he wants to follow.
sir, there are 55 witnesses according to this report. Their testimonies were recorded and they were examined. You are of the opinion that that this doesn't have any legal, it won't stand in the court of law. Then how should this entire process be seen?
I want to know what is the conclusion of the report. Who would have kept the money there? 55 witnesses did not say who brought the money or who left the money. I mean, some kind of a makeshift room which has got some rubbish articles in it. I mean, is it conceivable that you're going to have money of that amount? I mean, I had heard there were going to be sacks and sacks of money. Not a single sack was found intact or burnt. Where are those sacks? I mean, just to have 50 people examine, you examined the police and the fire brigade. Why did they not seize it? So you have some kind of a video which was uploaded by the Chief Justice, an unverified video. You just upload it, and the media itself, has played it to the gallery, to the hilt. Therefore, on that day itself, the judge's reputation is damned. So, I mean, just by saying 50 witnesses examined doesn't mean anything. You have to get to the bottom of it. And certainly this report does not get to the bottom.
So, if you feel that this report does not get to the bottom of it, then what next in this case? What next, for Justice Verma?
As you said, it requires a fuller probe. Now, if Parliament has to, admit the motion of impeachment, there will be a fuller probe. There will be a proper 3 judges inquiry which will go into everything. And I mean, there's no manner of doubt that inquiry will be an impartial inquiry with a right of participation. Because this report doesn't have the right of participation of the judge. It has damned the judge. It has only given him a chance of explanation. So he has given his explanation, which they didn't find to be appropriate. But the fact of the matter is that the basic modicum of natural justice in our country is that you get a chance to cross-examine a witness. You have 50, 60 witnesses, no chance of cross-examination is given. What is the worth of this report? Especially when it has no proper findings.
All right, Mukul Rohatgi, former Attorney General of India, I appreciate your time. Let me bring in Mahesh Jethmalani, now Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, who's joining us live. Mr. Jethmalani, this report talks about half-burnt currency notes which were seen when the firefighters were putting out the blaze which spread to the storeroom in question. Many would say that this particular report completely nails Justice Verma and shows that his family and only his family had access to the storeroom, and that there was no scope of any outsider getting access without permission. So my question then is this now an open and shut case?
Maria, your question has multi-dimensions, frankly. But yes, I mean, this report, this inquiry report, finally in the public domain, certainly discloses or puts Justice Verma in very poor light, right? In fact, there is a suggestion that there was an attempt to, or it actually happened that the money was removed from the premises after it was located, videoed, etc., by the fire and the police, and then it ceased to be there on the next day as well. So there are, the report itself has many startling findings, some which we've come to know about for the first time with the publication of this report. But, the issue is one of criminality. I keep repeating this in every interview which I've had on the subject, that impeachment is a process. and a little cumbersome one, right? Which unfortunately, because the judge refuses to resign in spite of everybody calling upon him to do so, right? The parliament is forced to take because nobody has, it is only for removal of him from office, right? The criminality, right, has to be by virtue of a permission of the Chief Justice of India, which has been recognized by that very famous case in 1991 of 5 judges of the Supreme Court, right? That is of Veeraswamy's case. I mean, this incident now happened on the 14th of March, right? We are more than 3 months from the date of that fire and the discovery of this money. That it behoves the judiciary, right, to quickly clean up, and one way or the other, be fair as possible to Justice Verma, but to bring this to a swift conclusion, because every day that passes from that unfortunate episode, right, and of course some of the events in its aftermath, right. First a transfer, nothing done. Then Allahabad High Court sort of protests against them. Bar associations all over the country start howling, unfairness. Why should judiciary get? And then of course the whole process starts. So there has not only been, in my view, right, delay in the matter, but there's been some procedural reluctance as well in this case, so which is most unfortunate, right? If the Chief Justice is the final authority for sanctioning a criminal case or the registration of an FIR against a High Court or Supreme Court judge, right, then suo motu it should have been done, right? All right, if Justice Sanjeev Khanna wanted to wait, Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna, as he then was, wanted to wait for an inquiry report to fortify himself, right? The inquiry report was in his possession before he actually retired, right? What is the point? I mean, I find the ball being thrown all the time by the judiciary to the legislature or the government, right? So impeachment only removes, or will serve to remove, if successful, Justice Verma from office. Now, Justice Verma is obviously going to go out dragging and screaming, because if he were to resign, right, if he were to resign, he would lose the protection of Veeraswamy, which says he can't be prosecuted unless the Chief Justice gives sanction. So we are in a terrible catch situation, 22 situation, which only the Chief Justice now can resolve. So let's await the return. I'm told Chief Justice Gavai is abroad at the moment and is expected to return tomorrow. So let's hope things speed up on his return. As you said, as I keep repeating, impeachment is only to remove him from office. His prosecution, if he is to be prosecuted at all, can only be by the sanction of the CJI of India. CJI.
Yes. Mr. Jethmalani, there is a contrarian view, which is that there are a lot of presumptions in this report. And this report will not be able to stand in the court of law. There are more questions than answers after this report has been submitted. So is there a sense of jumping the gun as well as, as far as this report is concerned? And is Justice Verma, has he not been given a fair hearing? I want to know your opinion on this.
Well, I don't think there's any contrarian view which doesn't say there should be a criminal investigation, right? If this kind of amount of cash was found, and if you read between the lines of the inquiry report, right, the money is of a while they don't quantify it, they keep saying huge amounts. I mean, the bundles of 500 are found both on the ledge and on the floor to be 1.5 feet high, and it says it covered from the door to the other end of the room. 500 rupee notes. So, this kind of money was found in the possession of any ordinary citizen, right? And the question is one of possession. Right? It was always a criminal offense, whichever way you looked at it, right? Whether this money was put there by Justice Verma or someone on his behalf, or whether it was put by anybody else, as he says, to falsely implicate him, this was always a criminal offense revealed, right? The only question was, who done it? And since judges were involved, the Chief Justice of India had to be informed, and he had to take a call on whether to sanction a criminal investigation against him or not. Now, after all this material, you let the public decide whether there's enough material for sanctioning at least an investigation. The investigation might, after all, find Justice Verma completely innocent. We have now gone through pre-FIR stages in the form of a 3-judge, 2 Chief Justices and another puny judge of a High Court. 3 of them have now had an inquiry. And they've said that there is enough material to suggest that that money belonged to Justice Verma. Short point. If that money belonged to Justice Verma as they held, right, is it not a case for a criminal prosecution? Because it's a clear disreport assets by a public servant.
All right, Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani, really appreciate your time here on NDTV. So you heard from Harish Salve, Mukul Rohatgi, Mahesh Jethmalani. You can form your opinion with regards to this case. We are slipping into a short break. Coming up would be an exclusive interview with Karnataka Minister Priyank Kharge.